Hello students, welcome to English class. I am your teacher, Mr. Oza. Thank you for watching this video. Today we are going to work on classwork number 8. So once you're done watching this video, make sure that you're in the classwork number 8 Google Doc, and we're going to get that done today. If you want, you can take some notes during this video. That might be helpful, but also I just want you to sit back and listen and think along with me as I ask you some questions. So notes optional, but definitely use your mind and think about the questions that I'm going to ask you. So we are going to start working on an essay this week in class, and the topic of this essay is this question right here. What is the role of government? All right, so let's start this conversation by talking about pizza. I'm very proud of these images. I made these myself. When it comes to pizza, do you consider yourself a conservative, a moderate, or a liberal? Are you the type of person who only wants cheese, nothing else? Maybe one topping, maybe two toppings on there, then maybe you'd be a moderate. Or are you very liberal when it comes to pizza? You want so many toppings on that pizza that you want to have to fold that pizza. You want toppings falling off of that pizza. What is your opinion when it comes to pizza? Me personally, I'd consider myself a moderate here. You know, I do like my toppings, some pepperoni, some garlic, maybe some onions, stuff like that, maybe even mushrooms. Not too many though, one or two at a time. Keep it moderate. I don't want my pizza to fall apart. When it comes to ice cream, do you consider yourself a conservative, a moderate, or a liberal? If you're a conservative, you just want that bowl of ice cream. Let me just enjoy the ice cream as it is. If you're a moderate, yeah, I'll take some toppings, maybe some rainbow sprinkles on there. If you're a liberal, if you want to be really liberal with your ice cream toppings, you want hot fudge, you want nuts, you want a cherry on top, you want chocolate sprinkles and rainbow sprinkles. You want everything. You know what? Throw a brownie in there too. If you're very liberal with your ice cream toppings, then you can consider yourself a liberal on this topic. Me personally, very liberal with my ice cream toppings. I want a lot of toppings involved in my ice cream. You guys ever go to Tutti Frutti at the mall? It's like my favorite place in the world. Go in there and nobody can judge me for how many toppings I want on my frozen yogurt. I want everything. All right, next topic is gonna be tacos. When it comes to tacos, do you consider yourself to be a conservative, a moderate, or are you a liberal? If you're a conservative, you don't want a lot of involvement with these toppings. Just give me the beef, just give me the crunchy shell, that's all I need. If you're a moderate, let's keep it simple. I do want some toppings involved here, but not too many. Give me some lettuce, give me some cheese, maybe, one packet of the fire sauce. That's enough for me. I'm going to be moderate with my taco. Or are you a liberal and you want a lot of involvement from the toppings? Got onions, got cheese, got tomatoes, got hot sauce, got some, looks like lime maybe, at least lime juice poured on top. When it comes to tacos, which category would you put yourself in? I'm going liberal again on this one, you guys. I don't care if the taco is messy. I really don't. I'll eat it up with a fork afterwards. I'm very liberal when it comes to tacos. I don't mind a lot of toppings. I don't mind the mess because I can just eat it all afterwards. So now, let's get into a slightly deeper question. When it comes to the size of your government, do you consider yourself a conservative, a moderate, or a liberal? If you're a conservative, you probably want a small government. You don't want the government to be involved a lot in your everyday life. If you're a moderate, obviously you're somewhere in the middle. You want a decent-sized government, maybe a medium-sized government, and it's okay if the government is involved in your life a little bit. It can be helpful in many different ways, but just a medium amount. If you're a liberal, you want a larger-sized government, and you probably want the government to be involved in your life in many different ways. You want the government to be involved in different areas and try to help out in as many ways as they can. Which category would you put yourself in if you had to think of one right off the top of your head? All right, we're going to now talk about 3 specific areas of government. Do you consider yourself conservative, moderate, or liberal in each of these 3 separate areas? So we're going to talk a little bit about social services, we're going to talk about education, and we're going to talk about foreign affairs. What is the best approach from the government when it comes to these 3 specific issues? Do you want the government to be not involved, or very minimal involvement, or the moderate approach, which is a medium amount? Or do you want high government involvement, a lot of government involvement? That would be a liberal approach. All right, so first off, we're going to talk about social services. Let's do that right now. All right, when it comes to social services, are you conservative, moderate, or liberal? What are some examples of social services? Public housing. Is it the government's responsibility to provide people with housing who may not have it or may need help acquiring housing? Should the government be involved? If you think that the government should not be involved in this process, you might be on the more conservative side, right? If you think that the government really should be involved in people's everyday life when it comes to helping them get housing, if you really want them to be checking up on you, even providing you with a place to live, then you would be more on the liberal side. All right, let's talk about food stamps. Should the government be involved when people need help buying food? If you think that's not the government's role, that's not the government's job, then you might be a conservative, right? If you think the government should be involved with helping people eat, then you might be more liberal. Also, welfare checks. If people are making under a certain amount of income, should the government use the public funds, the public tax money, to give people checks, right? If you think that the government should be involved here in giving people welfare, then you might be liberal, right? If you think the government should not be involved here, then you might be a little more conservative. And of course, you might be moderate, meaning that you think the government should be somewhat involved, but not completely involved. So hopefully you can come up with an opinion. Which one of these 3 categories do you consider yourself on the topic of social services? All right, now we are going to move to education. All right, this should be a pretty important topic. As you're watching this video, you're participating in your own education. All right, when it comes to education, are you conservative, moderate, or liberal? Should the government be involved in K-12 schools? Of course, the government does provide at least 1 to 12 schooling in most places in the country. How much should the government be involved? Should they, have a deep involvement in setting curriculum or funding the schools? If you think that the government should be heavily involved in this area, then you might be more liberal. If you think the government should back off and not be involved in education, maybe give less money, let the schools figure out ways to raise their own money, maybe make a little more opportunities for private schools that are not run by the government, then you might be a little bit more conservative. And think about colleges and trade schools. Okay, should governments be running colleges? Should governments be running trade schools? If you think that the government should be very, very involved in upper education, helping people pay for their upper education, then you might be more liberal. If you think the government should back off and not be involved in higher education, which means not paying for higher education, providing less money for college students to help them pay their way through college, then you might be more conservative. Or, of course, are you moderate? Are you somewhere in the middle where the government should be involved, but only to a point? So hopefully you can think about which category you might want to put yourself in here as far as education. And finally, we are now going to talk about foreign affairs. Another way to explain foreign affairs is one country's relationship with another country. When it comes to foreign affairs, should the government have minimal interaction with other countries, a more conservative approach, or a more liberal approach, a lot of interaction with other countries. Think about trade. When it comes to trading, goods and services between countries, should the government be heavily involved? Maybe when it comes to taxing these trades, you might be more liberal. If you think the government should be, stepping back and not getting involved in trade between countries, you might be more conservative, right? When it comes to war, do you think that the government should take a conservative or a liberal approach to war and armed conflict? And then finally, when it comes to environmental policy, do you think that the government should be liberal when it comes to environmental policy? That might mean creating a lot of laws around reducing the effects of climate change, or creating a lot of laws and agreements with other countries that do things like reduce pollution or reduce emissions. If you think that's not the government's job, the government shouldn't worry about environmental policy, and that they should back off from making these laws having to do with emissions and pollution, then you might consider yourself more conservative. All right, and of course, as always, if you think, the government involvement should be somewhere in the middle, then you would consider yourself to be more moderate. So hopefully you've come up with some opinions about your thoughts on these very important and very interesting political matters. Maybe you have now decided whether you more lean on the left side of the spectrum, which is the liberal side of the spectrum, or the right side of the spectrum, which is the conservative side of the spectrum. So I want to thank you for watching this video. If you have any questions, you want to share some opinions with me, then get in touch with me using my contact info in the description below. Otherwise, it's time to get into your Google Doc for classwork number 8 and get that assignment done. All right, and I'll give you some feedback along the way. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.